My teenage angst made my dad disown me. After 11 years now he wants to talk with me. My biological dad was not the most likable guy when I was growing up in my teens. For one, he was controlling, a drunk, and was unfaithful to my mom. She found out that he was cheating back with the letters his mistresses would send directly to our house, which spurred him to ultimately lay his hands on her. My mom did not take that lightly, and immediately called the police, and he was soon arrested. It wasn't until when I was 4 that my mom finally left him. So me, my sister, and my mom drove to my grandma's place, which wasn't too far, and stayed there for however long till my mom was able to get back on her feet. My mom did her due diligence, and then took him to family court, where they made him pay $600 a month and was allowed to see us out supervision every weekends. He wasn't bad to neither me or my sister at the time, but I would always see him almost mostly drunk due to the parties he would throw at his new place. He would invite all my uncles and his friends to just catch up and have a good time, which I won't fault him for. I loved seeing all my uncles together, and they enjoyed me being there. Being that I was so young, I wouldn't have noticed how much more caring they were of me. Back then, one of my uncles was drunk at the time, and was tearing my bio dad a new one, saying that he didn't truly care for either me or my sister, and that he only had us to make himself feel better. I honestly didn't understand at the time due to them speaking Spanish when it was happening. It didn't matter to my bio dad what my uncle had said, until my grandma on his side was over in the States, and was due for a doctor's visit when I was about 12. I remember what he said to her in Spanish, that all they do is ask for stuff from me. They don't want to do anything with me. It wasn't till my grandma gave him a true wake-up call and said that he was never there. That stunned him for sure, to have his own mom tell him that he did not care for his kids, and that he didn't truly matter to us at the time. Despite all that, I still considered him my dad due to, of course, me being so young and naive, but I was stuck in my own way of being mostly alone and played video games back then. He would try to introduce me to mechanics by having me help him with the car he would go on and say would be mine, but ultimately sold it. I wasn't too into it, but it was probably the only other time he would try and be a father to me. It didn't really click for me to work on the then car, so I just didn't help him out on it ever again. It wasn't until that I had my first major breakup that would lead me to lash out at my bio dad. I was 16 at the time, and in love with a girl back then. I was head over heels for her, and thought she would be the one. We would always plan our outings together on the weekends, being that I would still visit my bio dad. I was blind and madly in love with her, to the point to where I almost made it all the way with her, but she was shy, of course, and I didn't want to push her to do anything she didn't want. It wasn't till then that a friend of hers reached out to me with a photo, and said that she was sorry to do this. The photo was of my then girlfriend with another guy, and they were kissing. I was heartbroken. I had called her up to try and confirm if it was true, and she did say that it was, and didn't want to hurt me. I was dumbstruck when she had said this, and had hung up the phone on her. My bio dad saw me, and of course, being slightly drunk at the time of me being distraught, asked me if I was okay. I told him everything about that happened, and he felt that it was more of my mom's job to deal with this, so he took me home to my mom. He would then just say that the only way to truly get her back was with success, and to show it to her to try and get her back. I was not hearing it at the time, being an emotionally charged teen, and kicked the back of his seat hard. So what does he do? He drops me off in the middle of the street, and told me, "No wonder she left you." I was now furious at him. So I started walking away from him. It wasn't till he was thinking clearly, and knew he was in trouble with my mom if she found out what had happened. So he told me to get back in the car and he'll drop me off at my mom's place. We would keep quiet for almost the rest of the drive until he said it again, what would only bring my then ex back to me. I mostly toned him out until I kicked his seat again. We were literally just around the curb of my mom's street, and he kicked me out again. He then said that I was a loser and didn't want me around his house again. I then threw the phone I had at the time at his car for saying that. By the time I had got to my mom's place, my mom was outside waiting for me. My sister was still there at my bio dad's place, and had told her that I was going back to her. My mom was surely a trooper for putting up with me honestly, and did the best she could to comfort me. It wasn't until 15 minutes later that my bio dad came back to tell her what had happened, but my mom was not hearing none of it. She demanded to tell her what actually happened, and to replace my phone. Him, being clearly too drunk for this, gave her his then phone, and drove off. It was from then on that my mom did not have me go with him ever again, and I agreed with her. I told her all that happened, and said that I wasn't his son. Despite all that, I was more genuinely happier. My mom was already with my stepdad at the time, and they helped me as best as they could. It wasn't until COVID happened that I got a message from my bio dad, asking me how I have been and would like to see me. I never answered him because I didn't want him in my life again. He would try and still send messages here and there, basically almost saying the same thing, like, "Hope you are okay, and if you want to talk to me, I'm always open for it." All of those messages went unheard. It isn't up until 2 weeks ago that he tries to reach out to me again, asking me, "How are you? Can we talk?" I had then moved in with my now girlfriend and told her what happened. She was understanding of what had happened, and asked me what I wanted to do. I wouldn't lie and say was at least a bit curious on what he meant by that, but I would still leave him on read. I just still a lot of pent-up rage on what he did to me. I don't want him back in my life again, but still wonder what would he want to ask me in that sort of tone per se. My mom says to do what I think is right, and if I do talk to him, to let her know. My mom has always been my go-to if anything like this were to happen. I just don't know what would be the best course for me to do.